You know, sometimes you think you have all your ducks lined up in a row. You think that you have everything under control. And for me, back in June of 2023, a lot of things were shifting and up in the air. But one thing I was sure of was that I was going to complete all of the main Persona games 1 through 5 on my Twitch stream. I'd played 4 Golden, I'd played 5 Royal, and now I was starting Persona 3 Fez. If you've watched either of my channels, Twitch or YouTube, you'd know that I did recently finish Persona 3 Fez, including the answer. But to my dismay, after all of the growing pain of adjusting to a PS2 Persona release, something unexpected happened. For those of you who don't know, Persona 3 Reload was actually announced back in June of 2023, a mere 2 weeks after I started my Persona 3 Fez playthrough. Like I mentioned earlier, I'd played 4 and 5, and after falling in love with the series, I decided that I'd like to play all of the Persona games on stream. And it turns out Persona 3 Fez has a great story, a great soundtrack, some standout characters, but it was by far my least favorite release in the series so far. Now, before you devoted Persona 3 fans pop off in my comments, let it be known that I did enjoy the game. I liked the story. There were just certain aspects of it that made it a little bit more rough around the edges and less of a smooth gameplay experience, especially because I had just finished Persona 5, which is arguably the easiest game in the series. So why are we here today, you might still be wondering? Let's talk about it. Since the remake is coming out super soon, I wanted to discuss some of the aspects that I think could be improved in the game, as well as some things that I really hope we don't lose. But before we get into that, let's talk about some things that we already know. I'm going to be referencing the Persona 3 Reload wiki quite a bit here, so if you want to read more, I will leave a link to it in the description below. Definitely check it out if you'd like. So probably the most obvious, the aesthetic changes. These changes include an updated UI, new artwork, and entirely new character models and sprites. I'm really excited to see how these aesthetic updates monetize the game and make it accessible to a new generation of Persona players. I think a lot of Persona 5 players are deterred from playing earlier games like Persona 3, not only because of the platform that it's on, but also because of the way that it looks. Luckily, I was able to upscale the resolution when I was playing, but having updated artwork and menus will be really nice, especially because if you look back at these menus now, they are pretty dated. There's also a new soundtrack coming with Reload as well. Longtime fans of the series are excited to see the return of Lotus Juice, the rapper featured in the original Persona 3 tracks, such as Mass Destruction and the Persona 3 Fez opening. But there will be a new female vocalist named Azumi Takahashi. There's also an entirely new English voice cast, which I think might be a little weird after just finishing the game. It always takes me like 6 months to finish a Persona game, so I do get pretty attached to their voices. So whenever I go to compare the two, I'm definitely gonna feel a little bit jarred. Also, huge, the social links are almost entirely fully voice acted. If you watched my previous video on the channel about my least favorite Persona 3 social links, you'll know that one of my huge gripes about the social links in Persona 3 was that nobody had any voice lines. I guess the budget wasn't there, but it was so exhausting to read every single line, and I missed even just having rank 1 and rank 10 voice acting. So I'm really looking forward to having this added layer of fleshing out the characters, I guess. There's also quite a bit of gameplay and story changes that we know about ahead of release date. New scenes called Link episodes have been added, and they can provide fusion recipes as well as stat bonuses. These are separate from the social link function, but they'll still allow the player to glean some more information about their seized teammates and some other side characters in the world. I've been pretty bad about keeping up with the news on Reload as I've been trying to finish Fez, but one thing that I'm super excited about is that there are going to be added activities that you can do outside of Tartarus, including quizzes, hanging out and doing activities with your dorm mates, gardening, There will also be a fortune teller that affects the condition of Tartarus, and Cafe Chagall will have an added functionality that will allow your party members to relearn old moves. I'm especially excited about the ability to hang out with the dorm members and do different activities to improve my social stats. It reminds me a lot of in Persona 5 how there's a ton of different activities that you can do around the world in order to improve your stats, and I think it'll really make the dorm more dynamic and more than just like a place to save your game. Another really important area of the game that's facing some changes is the combat. Now this I'm massively excited about because the combat in Persona 3 was literally the one thing in the game that had me on my knees, crying, throwing up, screaming. It was so hard sometimes for no reason. So first of all, there's an added function called Theurgy, which can be unlocked by filling up a meter during battle. This meter can be filled up by taking battle actions, but certain actions will fill it up faster, and whenever you do fill it up, a certain member of your party will unleash a special attack. We're also getting something called Shift, which is similar to Baton Pass, but it won't have the same power-up function that Baton Pass has in Persona 5. Even though it sounds a bit disappointing, I appreciate this. Seeing this remake in 2024 shows that the developers are trying to update this title in order to reflect the standard that one of their most popular games set. So having even this little bit of differentiation shows that there's an effort to make it different, and not just a Persona 5 remake with a Persona 3 skin. The fatigue system is also being removed, which I think is interesting. I personally don't really care, as I never grinded to the point where my party members got fatigued for the most part. I know opinions about this online are a mixed bag. Some people are like me, they don't really care. Other people are gonna kind of miss the realism of having your party members get fatigued and having to rest them up. But let me know what you think in the comments about this, if you are sad to let it go or if you also don't really care like me. So with all that in mind, I wanted to talk about some of the things I hope remain and some of the things that I hope they kick to the curb. Let's start with the positive. The first thing I love about Persona 3 is the story, and let me issue a very vague spoiler warning. I'm not going to go into any specifics, but if you're really trying to stay fresh for Persona 3 Reload, here's your warning. I love how ominous and foreboding the beginning of the game is when you enter the train station and the midnight hour hits for the first time, but I also love that you end up with a group of people, like, immediately who know what shadows are and they know what their mission is. There's no sort of confusion or mystery about what's going on like there is in the beginning of Persona 4 and 5, but there is a little bit of deception, so you know you can't trust everybody. I also love each character's attachment and motives that connect them to the story. I love the betrayals and the fact that the story doesn't shy away from killing major characters off. The stakes feel so much higher than they are in Persona 4 and 5, and I know that there's threats of death and imprisonment in other games. I know that plenty of people die in the other games too, but once you play Persona 3, I think it really, you see how close to home that threat of death is. I don't see how they would change this point too much, honestly, so it definitely feels safe to hope that this plot and the story remains pretty intact. I guess I just mostly hope that any additions they may make to the story in the remake honor how special this story is and how different it is from the other games. Also, I'm literally obsessed with Aigis. Hold on. I love the concept of a robot desiring humanity as much as she does, and she has a couple of heart-wrenching lines towards the end of the game and in the answer that really solidified my appreciation for her. The developers have confirmed that Persona 3 Reload is a remake of the original Persona 3 and not of the other editions that exist, so I don't think that we'll be getting much, if any, of the answer in the remake. I am a little bummed that we won't have quite as much Aigis plotline because of this, but I definitely recommend at least watching the answer cutscenes after you finish Persona 3 Reload, because there's some crazy stuff that goes down. Speaking of the story, I really loved the end of this game. It was so tender and gentle, and the closing song is so beautiful. I didn't even realize what was going on with the main character at the end because it was that peaceful. This is another thing I hope to remain pretty untouched, and again, I think it would be crazy if they changed the end of the game for the remake, but I do know that we won't get any content from the answer, so you all better cherish that ending for me because it is so good. But who knows, maybe Atlas will release $30 worth of DLC so you can play the answer and meet some extra characters. Now that we've given Persona 3 her praises, let's talk about some things that I want to change. Like, really badly. The first being the social link format. I'm really looking forward to hearing more voice acting in the social links, but I hope that they also provide more bonuses in addition to the Persona Fusion XP, like battle actions of some sort. Maybe this will tie into the theurgy skill that we're getting. One of my main complaints about the social links in the original game was that it didn't really feel like main character actually had a place in a lot of them. He kind of just witnessed whatever the side character had going on, and all of the answers were inconsequential. I know that the stories for social links remain pretty unchanged regardless of how the main character reacts in certain situations, and that's fine, but I do hope that maybe some social links have possibly more fleshed out storylines. I did read that we are going to get a lot of dialogue taken from Persona 3 Portable, so I didn't play that version, so who knows what I didn't see. I also don't think that we're going to be getting social links for the male party members, unfortunately.
Oh my god, what is that?
My cat is so hyper right now. I don't think we'll be getting social links for the male party members, unfortunately, but I have read that there's a possibility that these link scenes that have been brought up will cover them a bit and allow you a little bit more time with them. I'm hopeful that this is the case, and I'm looking forward to see how this fleshes out these characters in regards to the main story as well. Next, let's talk about the combat, because oh boy, like I said earlier, the battles in this game are so brutal.
Chat! You got cheese. I don't want to do it again. It took so long and I have to do it again.
Persona 3's RNG is really unforgiving, at least in my case it was. So if you're not careful, you can lose a lot of progress grinding in Tartarus just by running into a stronger shadow on accident. And this happened to me like more times than I like to admit. In the back? Yeah, I was saying it reminds me of Sai's Palace from Persona 5, if you remember. Ooh, Excuro's Slay would be a good bit emote. Yay! Huh? It got so bad that I started using save states every time I switched floors just so I wouldn't have to redo 30 minutes to an hour of grinding. So of course, I hope the RNG is adjusted to be a little more fair, and I wouldn't be surprised if the way the battles play out in Persona 3 Reload lean more on the easier side, because I know that they're trying to remake this game up to Persona 5 standard, and the battles in Persona 5 are way easier. What I think would really benefit players like me, at least, would be the ability to control your party members and not have them be AI controlled. Of course, in the original game, you have the ability to kind of like funnel what they're gonna do with the tactics function, but sometimes even then it's really frustrating, like when Ken heals one member with Dire Hand, when you know that the situation calls for everybody to be healed with Mediarama because the boss is about to do an AoE move that's gonna kill all of you. Overall, this function isn't too terribly bad for most of the games, but like I said, there are some boss battles where not being able to directly control your party members is fatal. I honestly don't know how other people feel about this change. I know a lot of people modded the original game through an emulator so that they could control their party members, but let me know what you think in the comments if you're looking forward to full party control. One last thing I never got the hang of in Persona 3 was the ability to crit enemies. And I'm not talking about knockdown like their weaknesses. I'm talking about the ability to hit a critical more effectively. I definitely had a lot of lucky moments where someone in my party had a good weapon equipped, or some of my party members maybe had good stats with certain equipment, but I didn't really grasp how to use the status effects like shocked or frozen effectively. They also only ever lasted one turn on most enemies, so I don't really think I had a great chance to use them strategically regardless. This might just be me being slow to pick up the technique of the gameplay, and you're free to let me know in the comments what the hack is, but I do hope that it's a little bit more straightforward, at least in Persona 3 Reload's combat. Overall, I'm really looking forward to the combat changes that have been revealed so far, especially in conjunction with the updated UI. I think it's going to be clean, I think it's going to be snappy, and I think it's going to be more fun, which is the most important part of a game. The last thing I thought I'd touch on might be a little bit controversial just based on things that I've read online, but I think that the pacing in Persona 3 Reload is a little bit wonky. Honestly, all of the Persona games are pretty front heavy to me, and when I say front heavy, I don't mean the majority of the good content is at the beginning. I just mean that with the tutorials and the gradual introduction of the characters, the plot twists and the climax of the games always kind of happen really suddenly, and then if you're playing the extended versions, there's just another like 30 hours to play after that. It doesn't really feel like you're building up to something in a lot of the Persona games. That being said, these games are really long, and I think pacing is an obvious challenge whenever you're trying to fill out 100+ hours of gameplay that is also really plot heavy. My hope is that added features like the link scenes and the additional Dorem and Polonia Mall activities will help fill out some of that space for me, because there's no way the story itself is going to be changed, especially in regards to the timeline. I'd love to know your thoughts on the pacing in Persona games, just in general. It's never been something to deter me from any of the games because obviously I've played 3 of them at this point, but it is kind of a critique that like hangs out on the back of my head, so let me know what you think in the comments. With all that being said, I am really looking forward to giving Persona 3 Reload a spin when it comes out this February. Although it would have been nice to play the remake from the beginning, I'm actually pretty grateful that I played the original game and have the opportunity to see how much the developers have updated and improved this game while honoring the main story that it originally was telling. Persona 3 has one of my favorite stories in the franchise so far, so I think that updating the gameplay will definitely bring some more justice to the story and allow the audience in turn to grow. Let me know your thoughts, your hopes, your dreams, your fears for Reload in the comments. As we get closer to release day, I find myself getting even more excited about it. It's just gonna be so crisp. Like, y'all don't understand. I have been emulating a PS2 game and I didn't have consoles growing up, so playing something so
barbaric.
PS2 users, I might have just called you old on accident. I'm just kidding though. I'm just kidding. It's not that bad. But playing something so out of my comfort zone was crazy, and it's worth it. It's definitely worth it if you want to play the original game, but I am looking forward to how good the new one's gonna be. If you're looking to see some release day gameplay, I will be live on the 2nd of February over at twitch.tv/xgiru. If you want to come join us, I'd love to see you there. Let me know you're from YouTube. We're going to be playing that first weekend if you want to check it out and see if you want to get it for yourself. I also plan to eventually record a comparison between Persona 3 Fez and Persona 3 Reload. So if you enjoyed this video, if you've liked what you've seen on the channel, definitely give it a like. I make a lot of Persona content because low-key this game is my special interest. So if you're into Persona, if you're a Persona nerd, come here, baby. Am I gonna keep that in? Thank you so much for watching today. I really hope you enjoyed the video. I've been liking making these scripted videos more so lately. I have a lot of like edited Twitch content on my channel already if you want to watch some of my playthroughs, but I do plan on putting out some more YouTube dedicated videos in the future. And I'm really excited because we've been able to upgrade the setup a lot in the past few months, so why don't you join us? I'd love to have you along for the journey, and again, if you're not subscribed already and you would like to be, please consider subscribing. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!